Welcome, world, to another episode of Open Book Broadcast. I am your host, Allie, with the Right Place, Right Time, award-winning author, international ghost writer. I almost said ghost coach, ghost writer, and book coach. And I am so pumped to be in a conversation today with my friend and colleague, Jennifer Jane Young. Here on Open Book Broadcast, we talk about anything and everything to do with writing and publishing, the things in between, the things that are adjacent, and sometimes just the shit that I want to talk about. So let me formally introduce today's guest before we start to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. Jennifer Jane Young is an intuitive business and leadership advisor, founder of the School of Intuitive Leadership, and former United Nations consultant. She helps entrepreneurs and leaders find the path of least resistance, make the biggest impact, and create sustainable, aligned success through right brain intuitive leadership. She brings together the last 13 years of her experience coaching, advising, and managing startups to multi 6 and 7-figure businesses, her background in yoga therapy, and experience leading a community of entrepreneurs for the United Nations of 5,000 plus members in partnership with the International Trade Center in Geneva, Switzerland. Jennifer facilitates growth, flow, and transformation for heart-centered, impact-driven entrepreneurs and businesses. She helps her clients translate their vision and intuitive guidance into practical actions and helps them find the most intuitive and aligned solutions and path forward to success. Jennifer is the author of her upcoming book, Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap in Business and Life, and is the host of her podcast, Finding Your Flow. While living in between Canada and Mexico with her 2 rescue dogs, she runs her school, leads a team at Alchemy Accounting as head of people and culture, nurtures her community, and writes her books. Welcome, Jenn.
Hi,
All
Allie.
right.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad that we're getting to do this. We've been kind of doing all of the WhatsApp communications this year, like keeping in touch. So it's fun to see you and have you live with me to talk about being a first-time author, using your intuition in the creative process, leading with your right brain. But before we dive into all those fun things, who is Jennifer Jane Young when she's not taking over the world, doing all of the things, and she's shutting the office door at the end of the day?
I know, right? I was listening to you read that. I was like, wow, I do a lot of things. um, yeah. So when I shut the office door, I'm literally in the most cozy, soft clothing, um, you know, in my yoga pants, reading books, sitting by the fire or by the ocean, depending on where I am in the world. Um, I just like really simple living. I just with my dogs and that I don't know if you ever heard of the word hygge, like the hygge kind of philosophy. It's from Denmark. It's just like cozy, connected, simple living. That's what I do when the doors are closed to my office.
I imagine that's really restorative given the multiple things that you're doing during office hours.
It is. And it's really, really needed. So it's the way I balance all of my creative and inspirational energy that comes out in the week, with
Yeah.
my work, so that I can fill my cup and restore. Absolutely, we're lagging. I think I can see that we're freezing up here. Am I freezing on you?
We do have a little bit of a lag, but it's not so horrible that we can't proceed. So let's keep going and hopefully it'll all be well in the long run.
Okay.
Um, if anything, it's making us both have to kind of
Okay.
like think about what we're saying and then respond is what it comes across like. So tell us
Yeah.
about
Exactly.
the work that you feel called to do right now. What's the work that you feel the most strongly about doing in this season of business?
Honestly, right now, what's calling me is really like deep connection with community. I'm feeling called to connect with people in a variety of different ways, and like really getting to know the people in my circle, who are coming through my orbit, both virtually and in person, actually. Like I'm really craving that deep connection with people right now. And obviously I feel like my world is revolving around my book. Like I just want to be in all the things related to the book and creating these experiences for us all to enjoy as this book comes out that almost feels like is not almost really not mine anymore. Like it's a really weird feeling. So community, writing, connection is really what I'm craving right now.
So you brought up your book and how you're really just wanting to do all the things with your book. So let's talk about your book. Um, Number one, why don't you just give us the sneak peek? Like, the title says a lot, which I've put up here on the screen for folks. But so say yes to your yes, how to trust your gut and take the leap in business and life. In like one or two sentences, this is like your elevator pitch. What would you say is the benefit of readers spending time with this book once it's available for them?
Well, if I think about my own experience with this journey, the benefit that it brought me is fixing the problem of like feeling unfulfilled in my life, you know? So when we follow our gut, wherever it's leading us, which oftentimes doesn't make any logical sense, it's always trying to lead us somewhere where we're going to, move into growth, experience things that are more aligned for us. And so, when I was younger, I was very much in this feeling of like unfulfillment, feeling lost, feeling like, where is my place in the world? What is my thing that I need to be doing? Where are my people? Why am I feeling so empty inside? And the more I started to like just follow those nudges, the more I started to align with things that were just like filling me up, you know? And so I would say the first benefit is really that it's like just creating and living or leading more and more a life of deep fulfillment. And the other benefit I would say is accessing like the fullest expression of who you are. When you're doing things that you think you should be doing or like following the herd, like I like to say, um, you're not accessing your fullest potential. You're doing what everybody else is doing or what everybody else or the world is telling you should be doing. So you're going to discover layers and layers and layers of yourself that you didn't even know existed and start to let them be expressed in the world. And for me, the whole journey also has just initiated so much healing in my life. Um, so I would say it becomes a journey of just like constant blossoming over and over and over again, rebirth over and over and over again.
Yeah. It makes me think of like lily pad blossoms. Yeah,
Yes.
they come open, but then when you pick them, they kind of close up. But then if you like nurture them, they can open themselves back up again. Um,
Yes.
and I think, the manuscript at one point. I think what's really beautiful is the way that you put your own journey in there, for others who are going to read it to relate to, like, okay, these maybe struggles or that emptiness or that lack of fulfillment, isn't just unique to me. Like other people
Yeah.
also feel these things, and other people are also fighting against their intuition, not knowing how to lean into it.
Right.
Um, so I have to imagine that this has a little bit to do with something in your bio that I know now what it means, but other people might not be familiar with, which is what you determine as or define as right brain intuitive leadership.
Right.
So let just define that for our audience for a minute, and then we're going to go back to some book stuff.
Yeah, I love that you asked that because a lot of people are like, "Stop talking about the brain," but I'm like, "It's so important," and I could nerd out talking about the brain and the nervous system for, like, ever. So, there's obviously not more than just 2 sides of the brain, but I'd like to just simplify it, left brain, right brain. And where most of us are just living in the left brain most of the time, making decisions from the left brain, taking action from the left brain. And the left brain is what we know, our conditioning, what we've already experienced. It's logic. It's where like kind of ego hangs out. It's what keeps us in order as human beings in the world, right? It's the part of the brain that reminds you to look both ways before you cross the street so you don't get hit by a bus.
Yeah. We need our
Uh,
left brain.
we need our left brain. So I tell people all that, like, don't just do don't just go into the right brain, but we need to learn to use each one in the right moment. The right brain is where we can access creativity, imagination, intuition, all of that playful, expansive energy. And the right brain is like where limitless potential exists. I love how my hand just disappears. Can we just pull the elephant out in the room right now? I'm going to make the background disappear. Um,
She's magic, people. She's magic.
exactly. Um, and the left brain is limited to what we know, right? And so that's why people really spend most of their life feeling unfulfilled because they're functioning just from their left brain, or mostly from the left brain, because
Mhm.
when we're kids we're in the right brain, right? Like
Yeah.
we're in play, um, and we forget to stay in that energy, or to lean into that energy as we become adults with all of our responsibilities. So for
Yeah.
me, that's what right brain leadership is. It's like when you're wanting to, experience something amazing, move into growth, uh, create a new idea, write a book, all those things, you need to lean into the right brain, into your intuitive, creative energy. And then the left brain is going to help you put the book together, is going to help you create, like, a marketing campaign with a schedule. So we need it, but don't try to create something new and expansive from the left side of your brain, because that's where people get stuck. They're in analysis paralysis. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again,
Mhm.
getting the same results.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we're going to go back to right brain, left brain here in a second. But before we go there, what I would love to know is, you're a first time author. I know you've got several books in you, but this is your very first one.
yeah,
Um, what have you learned so far in this journey that has surprised you or challenged you? Like, what did you maybe think it was going to be like before you did it? And then
yeah.
what has it actually been like?
Well, my mom always tells me that I'm really impatient, and when I want something, I wanted it yesterday. So I was like, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to whip this together and put it out into the world. It is not. You need a lot of patience. And what I really learned is to honor and enjoy the process. Like, you really have to be in the process of writing the book and not rush it, which you've reminded me over and over again. Because I keep putting a deadline on this book. It's been since it was supposed to initially come out on my birthday in June, and the book just has a totally different plan, and it kind of becomes, it's like an extension of you, but it's kind of becomes bigger than you at some point. And
Yeah.
you can't micromanage this project at all, and you have to be really flexible and patient with it. um, and I think the other thing that I learned throughout this process is, I know this because books have been part of my life forever. They have been my lifelong university or school or learning. I was awful at school. I failed everything. I was always in the corridor in the principal's office. So I didn't, learning was not a big thing for me in school, but I learned through books. And I think you have to, like, really, um, really give your full self to it, and remember that this thing is going to go into the hands of people out in the world, and really think about the impact you want it to have. Like, get out of your ego and what you want it to be for you, and really look at it from the perspective of, like, and that's even the more I think about it, even just right now, the books that have landed in my hand and that have changed my life and my perspective. Like, you have to think about that when you're writing a book, I think, as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the things that I always, when clients are coming to me, regardless if it's for book coaching or ghostwriting, and they're starting off from scratch, very like blank slate, they're not
Yeah,
really sure. One of the things that we always talk about is, what do you want the book to do for you, but also what do you want it to do for others? Because at some point it stops being yours and it becomes the world's, right?
yeah,
Like, it stops being like you're the only one who's looking at it, and then it
yeah,
goes out there and you don't know who's going to end up with it. So what are they going to draw from it? What are you hoping that they're going to get from it? The book has to kind of like meet in the middle. It has to be able to address your mission and vision, but it also needs to be impactful to the reader. Otherwise, the reader's not going to buy it. The reader's not going to figure out how to relate to it or care about it
Right.
or engage with it, right?
Yeah.
So that piece is definitely huge. And I love what you said about like, you know, the, the patience, the process is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And it's good to have goals and deadlines, absolutely, like to work towards something. Otherwise, we could just be waffling around, not holding ourselves accountable, and the book never gets done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are steps along the way. You don't want to shortchange those steps. You don't want to shortchange your own brilliance and thought leadership and,
Yeah.
whatever's inside that book, right? So you kind of have to slow down and just be more tied to the end result, which is the final product and the quality of the final product versus, the original deadline or goal, especially if you're going to independently publish or self-publish or like work with somebody where the timelines are a little bit
Yeah.
more broad. Like if you had a traditional publishing deal, like you might not have the ability to be like, no, I need
Right.
another 6 months. But um, for a lot of us who are now choosing alternative publishing methods, we do have time. Time is on our side. And
Hmm.
if the world has existed this long without our book, it can exist a little bit longer and
Yeah.
then really, really feel great about the book when it arrives because it's got all of the beauty in it that it
Yeah.
needs. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So what's been the most joyful part of the writing process and what's been the most challenging?
The most joyful part has been collaborating with people like you on the book, like bringing other people into it to
Mm.
really elevate it.
Yeah.
And uh, I would say planning the launch of it and like the
Yeah.
movement that is going to be around this whole thing. The most challenging part is writing the book, to be honest. Like, you have a vision and an idea, and then if I think about it, I've actually been writing this book for 10 years because I still remember the day this was a long time ago. I was going for a walk outside. It was autumn, and I got this like aha epiphany moment. And I like walked back home really fast and I was like, "Oh my God, I need to start writing a book." And
Yeah.
obviously the version of the book changed about a million times over the last 10 years. But it was like it started with like an idea, a feeling, a nudge, and then it kind of matured with time. And then at some point I was like, it's mature, the ideas are mature enough to come to life now, right? And so I rewrote the book like 3 or 4 times, I think. Um, so the writing of it is the hardest. But I think now that I've done it for the first time, I'm really gonna set my like because I already have the next book. I haven't started it yet because I'm trying to control myself to like just give this one a chance to get out. But is really to surround myself the next time, like to go to more of those writing sessions like I was doing to you, to be in a community and get the support I need as I'm bringing this thing to life. Because it's really hard if you just do it all on your own and
Yeah.
stay with your own thoughts and ideas, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all think that writing a book is in isolation. And I think what's honest is that the writing might be in isolation, but the bringing the book to the world isn't.
Yeah.
Like you will always need editors, readers, people, a sounding board, people to bounce ideas off of. Eventually you're
Yeah.
going to need a cover designer and an interior layout person and a publisher, right?
Mhm.
So like the writing piece, to some extent, the drafts might be you and just the page, but a lot of the rest of the process of bringing that book fully to publication is with other people involved.
Yeah.
And finally getting some validation or acknowledgement of what you've been working on and if it's working or if it's not working,
Right.
versus just kind of like spinning up your own either self-doubt or excitement, around what you've written. And it could be one of, it could be both. Like that part really
Yeah.
works. That part's not so sharp just yet.
Yeah.
Um, so what about, okay, let's go back. We touched on right brain, left brain earlier. How do you feel in your book writing process you've tapped into your right brain and at what points? And then when has your left brain needed to come in and help?
Actually, it was, usually it's more challenging to lean into the right brain. But once you've been kind of practicing being in that space more often, it then kind of becomes harder to go back to the left brain, right? So that was the hardest part for me. The right brain kind of moments were just like letting the ideas flow out onto the page, like
Yeah.
just like, stream of consciousness writing kind of thing. The most challenging part was like, I got to go into the left brain and like structure this properly and like make it make sense and go into the details of it. And that was really excruciating to me. Because like there's something, I don't know if this is a thing, Allie, but there's something really weird about going back into something you wrote. Like there's this sort of like this little like low grade anxiety of like rereading something that flowed out so nicely and then having to like make it better, or there's something in that process. So like going back to my writing, and I remember even when we did our session together, I don't know if you remember, but like my body shut down. Like I couldn't
Yeah, you went
function.
into like a coma.
I went into like a coma and I was so
Yeah.
excited for that intensive. And
Yeah.
we got on the call and I couldn't even keep my eyes open. I was like, when this is an awful example, but when you're driving at night and you're falling asleep and there's nothing you just keep like
Yeah. You're like,
falling.
it's like a head bob, a head
Yeah.
dip. Yeah.
So that was what happened. My whole body shut down with you. And I
Yeah.
actually had to be like, I need to get up and go to the bathroom and move because I won't be able to do this. And I think it was because like I had to go sit in that with you and go into
Yeah.
my writing.
Yeah.
It was-
Yeah. So I find that people, I haven't really met anybody who's like, I love all of it. I love the whole process. Everything about it is great. Um, I find that there are kind of two camps of people. There are
Uh-huh.
the people who prefer the messy draft and like being in the flow and just like from here to the page and dumping and feeling really great about it, but hate revision,
Yeah.
like going back in and then having to fix it.
Oh
Like
no.
they would rather not, you know? Or there's the people like me who can't stand the first draft because that feels like the bigger hurdle, like trying to get all of the things said for the very first time. But then once everything's said, you're like, oh, thank God. Now I can like move the paragraphs around and chisel away at the word choice and, look for the run on sentence. My superpower is in the revision
Right.
and drafting the blank page and the like, oh my God, I know there's 22 chapters and there's like 10 years of material to cover and I just don't want to, like I'm like a sappy like Eeyore during
Okay.
drafting. Um, not where I want to be. And then I get finally to the end of the draft and I'm like, the slog is over. I will see the light. Um, so I think
Oh,
everybody has like their superpower or their strength, and sometimes you don't know it until you've done more than one writing project, right, to figure out where your strengths are and then where you need extra support or you're having some challenge. But I think it's interesting, the idea of where can our right brain serve us during writing a book, where can our left brain serve us when writing a book. And certainly, once that book comes out, like I hope that people ask you about that, right? Like
yeah.
in any of those book signings or book readings or launch parties, where they get to do the Q&A with the author. I hope that given what you do and you trying to help people tap into that right brain, I hope that they're going to ask you like, well, how does this work when writing a book? You need both sides. So like, where does the right brain and left brain come in?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I actually think that's a beautiful question for everything in life. Like, how does it work? Like, which side do I need when I'm doing, And I talk about this a lot at the school when we do our gatherings and our events, because that's where people get stuck. It's like, well, how does this process work then? Like, you know?
yeah. Yeah. So what about intuition? Like, let's step away from like right brain, left brain. I mean, obviously our intuition is probably coming from our right brain, but more broadly speaking, where during this process have you trusted your gut more than anything else?
I would say just in like what wants to come out, like what wants to come out of me. It's almost like you can almost feel it physically. Like I feel it a lot in my solar plexus, and it's just like wanting to flow out of me onto the page, and really just allowing myself to open the Google Doc and like just let it flow out, like let it, you know, um, be expressed out into the world. And I think just this strong knowing in me that, like, I need to write a book, and I need to write many books, and
Mhm.
shushing that, like, left brain ego side being like, "What are you talking about? Like, you can't write a book, you can't," like, all of this, these crappy stories we tell ourselves about we can't but what we can and can't do. So just, like, constantly trusting that nudge that was leading me towards writing and writing a book, um, and I think the other part for me where my intuition really served me was aligning me with the right people. Whether it was the right people to help me get this book out into the world, like you were just asking me before, like, where are you at with the, like, final editing piece? And, you sent me some awesome people my way, and there was one person in that I was like, this is my person. I could
Mhm.
I haven't even spoken to her. I could feel it in my gut. It was like my logic was telling me to go in another direction for another reason, but I was like, No, this is the person." And that's kind of how I go about my life now, It's like, well, this doesn't make logical sense, but this is where my gut is telling me to go or what it's telling me to do. Um, and I just trust it now and let the details take care of it. That this is what's important. When your intuition is telling you to do something, it often doesn't make logical sense. And you're trying to figure out, this is why we get into analysis paralysis. We're trying to figure out all the details. That's our left brain. We have to just let go of that. If you just say yes to your yes, the details will come together in a very natural and organic way. You still have to do stuff, obviously, but you don't have to force things so much or micromanage things
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. I love it. I was just looking at, like, over the year, I started this document that was called Things to Reevaluate in 2024. So,
Okay.
like, anytime something came up throughout the year and I felt a little bit, "Eh, do I wanna keep doing this again?" Or something doesn't feel quite right, like, rather than, like, stop and take the time to, like, pick it apart, I just put it in this, like, parking lot document of, like, think about it for next year. Like,
Right.
keep going on your path, like, you've got a plan, stay the course, and just, like, notice what's coming up, and if something feels off, put it in this document. So recently, I did a long weekend with a few colleagues on, like, a mastermind, and I brought this document out and I just created this, like, chart. And it was like, hell yes, hell no, and I really don't know. Right. And I
Mm,
just went down the bulleted list of things that I had created from the year and just was like, went with, like, my instantaneous knowing. Like, this bullet point, is that a hell yes or a hell no? Or is it, like, truly still, like, hanging out there where I just can't make a decision? And that was, like,
yeah.
so freeing to just go with that intuitive knowing.
Yep.
Like, no, this doesn't spark any joy or interest in me. This is not happening next year. Like, oh, this idea I absolutely freaking love and it makes sense and it's fantastic. That's going to go in my hell yes column.
Yeah.
And I just did, like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And anything that didn't have an obvious yes or no, I went back to and then decided whether or not it was something to try to handle this year, like, an administrative kind of thing,
Yeah.
or if it was an idea that I still needed to spend more time processing and that got kind of put into an additional parking lot, if you will. Um, but I find, following that gut reaction, like, while it seems like, oh, but you didn't really take a lot of time to think about it. It's like, well, why do we need to overanalyze things to death if, like,
Yeah.
we were to just listen to, like, the initial reaction, which is like, no, I don't want to do that thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that this is beat out of us by things like, well, you got invited to that family party. You really should say yes. Right? How many things do we do out of obligation or the feeling of responsibility?
Yeah.
And so we often say yes to a lot of things that I don't think are actually hell yeses, which then murkies the water of when to know when it's truly a hell yes
Yeah.
or when it's a yes because that's our automatic default response of,
Yep.
like, we should be saying yes, right? So um, I think our intuition is something to be nurtured so that we can actually use it to our advantage,
Yep.
right? And we can tap into it more. So let's spend a few minutes talking about intuition in the creative process generally, like,
Mhm.
not just books, but, creating something new for your business or creating something new within your family or,
Yep.
how do people get their head around using their intuition more regularly?
So the really simple answer to that is like practice. You just need to practice and practice and practice. And you can start practicing with simple things like, what do I want for breakfast this morning? What's my body telling me that I want for breakfast this morning? Like sometimes my body is like, you need to go eat a poutine. My head is like, well, that won't be good for the muffin top. But my intuition is, my body is like, I am craving a poutine right now. And when I just go do it and I freaking enjoy my poutine, for those of you who don't know what poutine is, you can Google it. It's a Quebec thing. Um,
We have it in
so
Vermont too because we're so close to the Canadian border.
I know, right? So good. Oh my God. So just like allowing yourself the pleasure to follow that nudge. And what happens is like when you're not following it, like there's like a kink in the hose, right? And when you say yes, the kink becomes like undoes itself. If that's even a word. And then the flow just starts, you know? I just wrote an
Mhm.
article about this week. My partner was really frustrated with me a few weeks ago because we're in my grandma's old farmhouse, which is why I have this weird background and you can see my hand going in and out because there's just piles of stuff behind me. Um, and I have this tiny little office right in the window with the view on the fields. And I'm like, this is where my office is meant to be. So I'm just going to go place myself in the pile, but make a nice little clean spot, you know? But I have an office here and an office like sometimes it's like the kitchen table and I have another office in the living room and I have a little foldable table for my bed. And he was like losing it. He was like, can you just please choose one and like make that your space? Cause like I don't know where to place myself anymore. And I'm like, sorry, I can't do that because I need to follow my intuitive nudge, like knowing or nudge of where I need to work in any moment. And that is very dependent on my energy, on the weather, on the moon. It's dependent on so many
Yeah.
things. And when like I knew this morning for this chat, I needed to be in front of this window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so when you allow yourself to do that, so when I allow myself to just go sit wherever I damn well please to work, the flow just unlocks for
Mhm.
whatever I'm meant to do that day. And so that's for me how intuition can just like blow your creativity wide open.
Yeah.
And we don't listen to it, right? We don't listen to the thing we want to do or we want to eat or the person we want to or don't want to see. And then we're like, why am I so stuck in my life? Because
Yeah.
you're not following your inner compass that's leading you exactly where you're meant to be in every moment.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Um, and I think that there's this, so there's intuition, which I think is kind of like the inner guidance, but I think
Mhm.
we often overlook those of us who are playing kind of in this space, trying to figure out how our intuition shows up for us and fostering it. There's that connection to your body, and how many of
Mhm.
us are disconnected
Yeah.
from our body.
Yeah.
We're not living inside our body. We eat too quickly. We grab things on the go. We take for granted our ability, for those of us who are able-bodied, right? What we take for granted our ability to, get up and down, move around, chase after the kid, the dog, the whatever.
Yeah.
We're not spending a lot of time slowing down and checking in to say, man, am I anxious right now? Like, am I, you know, is my, am I feeling into my chest? Am I feeling into my gut? Am I feeling in my back? You know,
Yeah.
and to breathe and to say, okay, what do I actually need right now? And have that higher consciousness, your intuition, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, kind of guide you, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like fostering your intuition is also about fostering a pace in life that allows you to be more present and
Mhm.
like attuned with yourself, and not just go, 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 working off of a default system and programming that's been running the bus, for however many years now.
Yeah, it's a total somatic experience, listening to your intuition because our intuition speaks to us through our physical body in many different ways, and sometimes through like visions or stuff like that. And this is why I still bring in the teachings of yoga and yoga therapy into the work I'm doing now, and I always will, because in order to really have a powerful relationship with your intuition, you need to slow down
Yeah.
enough to actually feel it and hear it. And you need your nervous system to be in its relaxation response. That's why I nerd out on the nervous system and the brain, because physiologically, you need to create an ideal environment to hear your intuition and then build a relationship with it and be able to trust it. If you're in your stress response, you're probably going to take these crazy ass leaps and be really reckless
Mm,
instead of doing it from a calm space of deep inner knowing of what's
yeah.
right and what's not right for you to do. So you're 100% right. You have to connect to your body and create that flow in when you slow down and you're in your relaxation response in your body. Um, you actually create a perfect environment in your body for your fluids to move,
Mm,
for circulation to move, for energy to move.
yeah.
And that's when we're in our most optimal state.
Yeah. Awesome. So Rashina G is with us in the comments. So hi, Rashina. Rashina is loving these insights. Yes. I mean, I know, dropping some sweet golden nuggets of wisdom over here. Rashina, we've got a few more minutes left with Jenn. So if you've got something that you would like to ask, you just pop that into the comments and I will be keeping an eye out. Um, Jenn, let's return to the book writing path real quickly. What advice would you give other first time or aspiring authors if they're embarking on this journey right now or they're thinking about it?
I think I would give them two pieces of advice. Open a document, just keep it open and let things flow into it when it comes. And find a community or a person who can be your mentor throughout the process.
Mhm.
Those are like the two most important things that I would say when you're just starting.
Yeah,
Create an open channel for whatever wants to come out to flow out and get the support you need. Because it's not just because like you need support. It makes the process so much more enjoyable having a mentor by your side. And
yeah.
obviously, I'm voting for Ali because she's the best.
I love getting your questions. I love getting anybody's questions. Like, um, writing a book is so much bigger than just what we all think that it is when we get the
Mhm,
idea to write a book. And
mhm.
unless you've done it and you've gone through those hurdles and challenges and all the beautiful parts too, you have no idea what you're getting into. It's just like it's this whole thing, a whole thing. Like
Yeah,
it's multifaceted, it's lots of emotions, it's lots of thoughts, it's lots of actions. It's just this all-consuming thing and it's a 10-headed dragon to slay.
yeah.
And people don't often realize that. So, I love it. I love being the guide on the journey. Like totally fills me up. All right. Where should people be connecting with you? And do you have anything that you give people for free that you want them to know about that you would just love to gift them in your world?
Yeah, well, I think, the thing I would really love to gift first is, if you sign up to the book launch waitlist, you get, my recorded Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap workshop,
Okay.
that I did, and a guided meditation, which is, like, I think really the golden nugget here, because that's what's gonna allow you to slow down and really connect to yourself. And you know, in both places, in the school community, I share a whole ton of free resources. There's also, obviously there's like a paid option, but there's a lot of free stuff that I share in the school community. And in my personal brand community now on Substack is another place where I share a whole ton of great stuff, and all my writing comes out into there. So I'm a community person. I love my people. I'm a Cancerian. I'm like, bring them all into my home. That's what I like to do. So come into my home, my virtual home, and connect and say hi. And yeah, in those two places, there's a whole ton of free extra resources as well. And yeah, I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn on social media. So those would be the two places online as well to come find me.
I'm also adding into the comments the community on Substack, the School of Intuitive Leadership. I've got the book launch link in there, as well as your Say Yes to Your Yes bundle, the guided meditation workshop and
Yeah.
book launch waitlist. Those are kind of one and the same. Yes.
Yes, it's all one. You just sign up once and you're going to get the whole
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So that will go into the show notes as well with the YouTube video. Jenn, what else? Anything else that's like top of mind that your intuition is telling you to say to our folks who are catching us live or catching the replay?
Yeah, I think, if you have this little spark inside of you that's kind of like nudging you to do something, I would say, like, just let yourself play with it. Like, don't take it so seriously at the beginning. Just let yourself play with the idea as if you were like holding a piece of Play-Doh and you're like, well, let me maybe make this thing and make this thing. And if you want to talk about the thing that like is that little spark, um, come find me, come see me wherever it feels good online. I always love to talk about this stuff with people and just like really trust that feeling you're having. I think it's the most important thing. People get this. We're being guided all the time, every single day, and we don't trust the thing that we're feeling. And every time you don't trust that thing you're feeling, you're kind of missing out on something that life is trying to deliver to you. I think
Mm.
that's really the most important thing I want to share as we tie up.
Yeah. It makes me think of like, I've heard this from like number of business coaches, but like every time you're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else,
Yes,
right?
100%.
And so it's like every time you're saying yes to the things that actually aren't serving you or actually aren't being guided by your intuition, you're saying no to your intuition. You're saying no to the things that are trying to like guide you forward on the path that you're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
Um, Love it. Love it. Jennifer Jane Young, everyone. Thank you, Jenn, for being with me this morning.
Thank you.
So, folks, we have another open book broadcast. It won't be a live recording in November. It will be a recorded conversation, which we will post. But looking forward to sharing that with you all. If you do want to catch the next live open book broadcast, then that's the end of the year, December 12th. Because it's already October 10th.
Oh my
What?
god.
Um, and I might look pretty harried by the time December 12th comes around, y'all, because I am up to my eyeballs in manuscripts. Good problems to have, but whoa, I will be toast by the time December 12th comes around. I should probably warn that month's guest that I might be a little rough around the edges.
They might need to
Um,
lead the conversation, right?
they might need to lead the conversation. Exactly. Maybe they should interview me.
Yeah.
So we'll have a recorded OBB in November. Next live one's happening December 12th at 10:15. Between now and then, please, if you have a story inside you and you are ready to jump on the path, but you're feeling a little uncertain, I would love to chat with you in a 20-minute story stroll. Just DM me or drop it in the comments and we can chat about that. I am here waiting to hear about the book you've got in your heart, the story you want to say, and the way you want to change the world. All right, folks, thanks for being with us. We will see you next time on Open Book Broadcast. Bye.
Bye.